Hello everyone, I hope you must doing well. So welcome to lecture 5, and in this lecture we are going to learn about the masking, right? So on the screen we are having an example of wall, right? It is not that much realistic, but the aim which I'm having right now is to make you aware about how the masking work, right? So let me show you with an example, like what is masking. So for example, this is a sphere, okay, and here we are having a cube. Yeah, okay, and the cube is having, for example, this type of texture. And what we want the sphere, the circle should be at the center. All right, so how we can do that? We having the cube, right? The circle at the center, okay, but the lines which is over here, right, that will not be visible over here, right? So we can say that the sphere is masked on the cube, right? So in the same manner we can say, this is a wall texture, or you can say the brick texture. You can control shift and left mouse button to preview the texture node. This is a Musgrave texture, this is a map range, and this is a invert, right? All this node I will explain, don't worry about that. But this is a brick texture, and the output over here, this is a Musgrave texture, which is combined of these three, right? And what is happening over here, like this thing we want to be masked over the brick texture, right? So what we did over here, the thing which you want to mask, that should be connected in the factor, all right? And this value, the factor value f, a and c, and the thing which will be on the foreground, right? For example, this wall texture, right? So that should be connected in the color 1 input, all right? And what is the use of color 2? You can say, for example, the whatever input we are having over here, right, that input color is going to be controlled by this value, the color 2. For example, if we are going to change the color of color 2 over here, we can see the color of this one, okay, that will get affected. For example, we did with green, right? So we can say that the color of factor value, whatever input we are having connected with the factor, we are having an input of this one, that input color is controlled by the value of color 2, all right? So now we can press Ctrl Z. I was experimenting about a different thing also. You can see there is a difference, and regarding the texture coordinate, right? If you had never watched that video, which is there on my YouTube channel of texture coordinate, please watch that. It is under the same procedural shading, and I also talked about the Musgrave texture, and I also talked about the brick texture when I was discussing about the procedural texture, right? The noise texture and the Voyeur texture. You will get the video on my channel, right? And we are having a mix RGB, and the bump is over here, that will be connected as a normal, but the map range and the invert, right, these two are there, which I also discussed when I was dealing with bump displacement and the height, right? And regarding this bump, again, when I was dealing with bump displacement and height, I was also explained you about the bump. And the only thing which is new for you, probably the invert node and the mix RGB, right? Yeah, so let's look this one. Yeah. Again, the texture coordinate is there and it is connected with generated, and here is a Musgrave texture and here is a brick texture, and this is a mix RGB, which you will get by shift A. You can press mix, right? Under the float you needed to select a color, and we are having again this thing, right? It is over here, and the Musgrave texture is connected with the factor value, and the brick texture is connected with the A, right, which is there as a color one before, right? And again B will control the color of the factor value, right? So we can start with the scratch. We can hide this plane, or what we can do, let's make a so by default you are going to add a plane, right? And under the transformation you are having a location to 0, the rotation x is 90 and the scale is 1, right? You can scale the values by 1 by Control A, right? Why it will get off here? Control A, and there is an option for the scale. You can click over it and the scale will get scaled to 1, right? So probably you are having the default, the material output and the principal VHDF, right? So let's add a Musgrave texture. Over here we can preview this Musgrave texture by Control Shift and left mouse button. We needed to connect with texture coordinate, right? So if you are not having that confidence, like what is texture coordinate and what are different parameters, that I discussed in previous video, you can watch that. So we going to connect with the generated, and we can play with this, but we can bring a brick texture over here. We can increase it to see all the parameters, okay? And we can also preview this one. Yeah, so over here you can see the brick texture is over here, right? It is having different color values and those values are represented over here. All right, so we can also, you can give any color as your choice. All right, and but I will try to make it as similar as possible. Make it darker. Yeah, we can have this. Yeah, you can also play with different setting over here. The scale one, right? The model size, right? You can play with, and these all are completely self-explanatory, so you can play with all these values, right? By holding the shift you are having the more control. Yeah, so what we can do over here, like the Musgrave texture is over here, right? For example, we can take the simple one, for example this one. So over this plane we are having two values, right? We are having our black values. Let's add an annotation. We are having the black values over here, and where is the different color I should use for that. And we are having our white values, right? And let's see which thing is going to mask, right? The brick texture is going to be appear over here in the black values, or brick texture is going to be appear over here, right? So we can add a mix RGB, right? There is also a mix shader, right? The shader is represented by the green header, right? Let me show that also over here, right? So if you are dealing with a different shader, you can mix by this value, right? So by having a mix by the color, then we can drag and drop in between. Okay, so by default we are having this. We can connect this one over here, and you know that why we are connecting this thing over here, right? If you came here by skipping the videos before 5 or 10 minutes, then probably you didn't know why we are connecting this value to the factor. And we are again going to connect the color value by A, and the color of the factor value is going to be controlled by this value, right? Control Shift and left mouse button. We can hide the annotation over here. Yeah, so we can see over the black values, right? So brick texture is there, right? We can see it is mask, and what we can do, we can add a color ramp, right? So that we can increase the contrast between the white values and the black values. Yeah, and the same thing can be done by the map range also, and that map range example I taken over here, right? Let me add a map range. Okay, so probably you are having a thought like what is difference between the color ramp and the map range, right? So when you are dealing with only the simple parameters, right, when you are dealing with colors and you want the colors, right, so you can use the color ramp. But when we are dealing with only the values and you want to control the values the most, then you needed to have the color ramp, right? As you can see in the color ramp, we can have the color values, and we are having the two markers over here. We can increase the marker by having a plus, or decrease the marker by minimizing it, or by deleting over here. But map range is going to, we can say in other words, it is bit advanced, right? It is giving the more control, right? So you can play with the different values which is over here, from minimum, from maximum to minimum to maximum, right? So in this manner you can control these values, and the same manner it is behaving like the color ramp, right? But you are having again the more control, right? Yeah, we can, for now we are not going to use the color ramp. We are going to use, not going to use the map range. We are going to use the color ramp. It will be more easy for you to understand the whole structure, right? So probably you understand what these things are doing over here. So for now, what we can do, we can increase the scale of Musgrave, right? Again, you can play with different values, right? Or what we can also do, like the values which is over here, right? You can also copy paste by your workflow, right? You are following up the tutorial, so you can see the values you can see over here, right? So probably you are having the scale, tail, dimension, each and every values are written over here, and the map range values are also written over here, right? So you can take the screenshot if you want. For now, let's get back into our workflow. Yeah. We can keep this one. The thing which we are having as a initial phase, right? This thing. Okay, and these two are completely similar but having different values. Okay. Yeah. Also, one more thing is there which I want to explain you about the invert, right? So what the invert is doing over here. So again we can press M to mute and shift D to duplicate the node. Why I'm doing this, I will explain you in a moment. Okay, let's take this one. Okay. When we are going to preview the color ramp, okay, let's have the annotation again. These are the let's erase the annotation. Select the red one so that it will also get selected and erased. The annotation. So again we are having the black values and we are having the white values over here. And what the result is going on, the brick texture is coming on the areas where the black values are, right? Or we can say when you are going to select on the marker, right? White marker is having a 1 value and black marker is having a 0 value. So in other words, we can say that the brick texture is masking over the 0 values, right? Or you can say the opposite of it, right? So what does the invert node is doing over here? We can add the invert node over here in this side, right? So you can say it is completely inverted, right? When we are going to press M, it will mute the invert node, but the node structure will again going to follow as the same manner, right? So what is happening over here? Control Shift, black values. In the black values, the brick texture is there, right? But when we are having an invert node, we can see in the white values, the brick texture is there. That means what does the invert node is doing? It is inverting the values. Which values? These values, 0 and the 1. All right. So I hope you get the idea. I don't know I explained in a right way or not, but let me know in a comment section. So probably you get familiar about the texture coordinate, the brick texture, the bump. If I tell you about the bump, you needed to watch the 4th video, but it is simply using the normal values or the height values, right? The height values, the parameter which we are using over here, and it is creating a little bit of bump of the surface, right? So we can preview that by this. Yeah, we can disconnect this also. You're not going to see that much effect. Yeah, so that's why I've taken a different examples over here. Okay, annotation, 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 and yeah. So the result you can get by simple this node also, and the same result or the more control result or whatever you are aiming for, that you will get from this node structure also, right? So again, you know all these the map range, right? The musgrave texture, the invert node, the mix RGB also, and the bump map, the big texture, and these are common one. And under the mix RGB there are different parameters, right? So probably we are not going to discuss that thing right now, but we will discuss that thing in future, right? Because I don't have that time to discuss to cover all these values over here, right? So I hope you got the thing which I came for. And yeah, also one more thing, you can see it is having the more detail over here, right? But it is not having, so you can get that by from the dimension. So again, whenever you are increasing or decreasing the value, try to hold the shift so that you are having the more control, right? So you can increase or decrease this one, and you can change the color by this one, right? And yeah, I think this is the end of this video, and after this video the next video is there. Probably we are going to discuss about the wood texture, right? That will be having more node structure, and that will be going to take or going to utilize the mind the most, right? Or the more, you can say, right? So in the next video or in the 6th video, we are going to learn about how we can make a wood texture, procedural wood texture. We are not going to use any kind of textures, right? We only are going to use the different maps, nodes, and you will get. Yeah, so this one also I did with, right? Probably it is having the bump values, right? I experimented bit, right? Yeah. So initially I did with this, right? This is the first one, and again, but in the second step, to minimize the thing, I did with this, and this thing I did in front of view, that is completely simple one. It is having 1 2 3 4 nodes, right? So you can say how much I worked. Yeah, so we can end this video, and yeah, we will see you in the next video, and bye bye, take care.